As a family member or a friend of an actor, what could you do to help them, to support them, to be emotionally there for them? What can you do to kind of make things better in this very hard road? It's being an actor. It's kind of hard. It's like being an entrepreneur. It's full of uncertainty, full of risks. You know, you're kind of on a ship by your lonesome in an ocean. That's what it feels like. Knowing nothing, having no sense of direction, feeling very lost most of the time, only with the North Star to guide you, maybe. So first thing you should know is that rejection, the strength, the power, amount of rejection, that's something that you should be aware of. Let me just give you an example. There's like a sign in some casting offices that tell actors how lucky they are to be there, because they say, out of 13,000 however many actors who were submitted for the role, you were one of the maybe 2,000 who were picked for an audition, maybe less. It depends on the project. Sometimes 1,000, sometimes it's 100, right? You were out of all those thousands of people who submitted their pictures, right, for the audition, you were then selected for the actual audition. Then out of those actors, you may be one of the dozen who get a call back, right? That's the next round. Then out of people on a call back, maybe you're one of the few people, like maybe 1 to 5 people, maybe 10, who are put on Avail, which is like the list, the runners-up list, right? The people who actually are now being seriously considered for the role. Now, out of those people, then only one person gets the job. That is the ratio going in. That's a ratio. For people starting out, your booking ratio, the amount of auditions you get versus the total amount of things you actually book, right? That ratio could be as high as like 99 to 1. So like out of 100 jobs, 100 auditions you got, you might only book one of them. Meaning for 99 of them, you tried hard, you at least tried somewhat, right? You at least put some effort in, at least you showed up, hopefully. Okay, you better show up. You put some effort, you hoped for it, you felt let down, right? For 99 of them. For one of them, you feel like you got it. What does that do to a person when you're constantly being rejected in that fashion? I don't think that most people anywhere else face that amount of uncertainty and rejection constantly. So I think it makes the 1%, that one thing you actually get, that much more important to you, valuable to you. Or any minor success, anything that can be perceived as a success, that much more important to you. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. When you're first put on Avail, that feeling is incredible. Because then you feel like, hey, even if I don't get it, at least I was good enough to be put on that list. I was seriously considered for something. And then I think for your first Avail, or first thing that you're seriously considered for that you don't actually book, that's such a huge blow. For my first feature film that I was like considered the final candidate for, all of a sudden there was another person who came who was a better fit for the role, and then she got it. But for a whole month, I was preparing for it. I was doing a lot of method, like observation for it. I was there. I was like, the role was like a migrant worker girl, like a kind of factory girl in China, right? So for that job, I literally went to a lot of places like how do I say this in English? A lot of those markets where these people work. I went there and I observed many, many times. I bought their clothes, I absorbed their fashion, their influences, I ate the food, I interviewed a lot of people, I observed them. I did that for a whole month, only at the end to be told, okay, the other person, actually not even told, I wasn't even told by the director. This director interacted with me for a whole month, like, you know, telling me what I could do. And then I didn't get it. That first, like, letdown is such a huge blow to you until you learn to just, you know, step away from it. And you know that there's other things down the line. That's not the end of the world. That's not the end all be all. That's not your one role, right? But the first thing is both such a thrill and such a big blow when you don't get it. The first commercial, even callback that you get, The first year I was in Hollywood, no commercial success, period. Didn't book a single audition. I always thought like, oh hey, I could have a nice smile, like, I seem like a friendly, average, relatable person on television right now. Didn't get a single thing. Only like after 3 years in LA, I got one like huge, then I got like a big, not huge, but like it was still a pretty big commercial that I got like, I was paid pretty well for just like a few hours of work. But that was like 1 per 3 years. That's the rate you're going at. So the first callback you might get for that commercial audition feels like such a win. Because like, oh, I got a callback. That's such a win. And it is, and it should be celebrated. But I think a lot of people who aren't actors, like their friends, they don't get it. So they don't react the way we might hope they would to support us, to cheer with us, right? They might just be like, oh, okay. Because what they want to see on the big screen. But how many people actually get to the big screen? And once you do, would it be actually that exciting for them? Because what they're thinking of is, oh, you have a huge line, maybe you're in the scene with a celebrity star, maybe you had like a heavy emotional interaction with them, and you have like a lot of meaty dialogue, and like, there's a whole role. But the truth is, for a lot of actors, especially starting out, maybe your first 5 to 10 years, all of your roles are going to be like one-liners. You're like that guy who says, a coffee, you're going to be like that guy who says like, oh, where's the bathroom? Or like, huh? Or just like a blank expression, like a reaction shot. You're like that person in the film that nobody thinks of as an actual actor. Hello, those people are actors. Those people worked really hard and they got the role. They don't see the work, they don't see it as that as an actual thing. Right? I have friends who in China, like they're so supportive of me. There's like a 40-something episode Chinese drama, right, that I told them not to watch. I was like, don't watch it, because I'm pretty sure they probably cut my role out. Like they probably cut all my lines. Like I'm probably not even in it for very long. Like maybe a few seconds, right? I'm probably in it for a few seconds. They watched every single episode of that just to see me. And of course it was a letdown because I was cut out and you just see like a few seconds of me without even talking. But they watched like 40 hours of that. Not so great drama. And that's like, that could be such a scary thing for us when we let down people who expect to see this glamorous image of us on screen. For every second on screen took probably 10 hours of work. And so that's what people don't see, so they're let down. And I think to be supportive, it's good to try to see things the way it is, and that it is a success, it is a victory, it is a step up, right? At the same time, I think it's okay to also question, to also challenge, right? My parents, of course, first of all, they're always trying to tell me maybe I shouldn't be doing it. They're not forcing me not to do it, right? They're not doing like huge emotional hijacking or like, threatening, be like, you better not do this or else something. Like, thank God I'm blessed to have parents who don't do that to me, who don't force me, like by emotionally threatening or hijacking me. By not doing that, that is already a blessing. But they're constantly trying to convince me that I'd probably be better suited to doing something else. I could be a lawyer, I could be a professor at Harvard. Right? I could be one of many, many things that is shinier, brighter, has a better future, more stable, etc., aka better in their eyes. But to me, this is what I want to do. And I think amount of that is healthy. It's like healthy resistance. Why? Because it forces you to come to terms of why you want to do it and how much you actually want to do it. I think for some actors, if their parents are totally incredibly supportive and nurturing, like, oh honey, like you want to do it, you can do it, I'll always be here to support you, can do whatever you want, I love that you're chasing your dreams and your passion, blah blah blah. If they're actually like that, maybe you're not that realistic about yourself, and maybe you won't be strong enough to actually continue, because when you're faced with that much rejection, that mountains of rejection, you might lose sight of what you're doing it for, right? You might have expected immediate gratification, like you thought by year 1 in Hollywood you would have made it already. You would have got an agent, at least you would have started to book your first roles. It doesn't come like that. It takes years. In my first year I booked nothing. Well, student stuff, but nothing like I didn't have representation. I never got an agent. You know, it takes years. So I think a healthy amount of resistance is fine because it helps to clarify, it helps to make you stronger and more dedicated, persistent in actually doing what you want. Because you know you're not there to satisfy anybody else. You're not there to satisfy someone's ego or to be what someone else's vision of you is. But you're there because you need it within yourself. I talk about this in my last video, right? You're doing it because you need it. And the same thing, the same language, I have friends who also use the language of chasing your dreams or going for your passion, chasing your passion or dream. For me, I also don't like that language. Feel free to tell me if you think otherwise, but for me personally, I don't like that because to me, it's not a passion and it's not a dream. Let me explain why. Singing in the shower is a passion. Dancing in the rain is romantic, right? Fantasizing about your crush is a dream. Doing the work, being there in the room, doing your auditions, making sacrifices, living with all of that uncertainty and self-critique and just, nagging fears and worries and everything and just struggling and doing a lot of other side jobs just to get the bills paid when you're broke, that is work. That is career. That's a career building thing that takes effort and time and sweat and work, and that's not a dream. That's reality. It's so funny because Christopher Nolan was actually the commencement speaker at my school for graduation. Commencement. Oh my god. Anyway, he said something I'm very sorry to say because I had no idea I would actually pursue this path of being an actress / filmmaker at the time. So I don't think I hung on to everything he said that like it had everything to do with my career. I didn't see it that way, right? I just thought his films were cool. That's all I thought. But one thing he said really stuck out to me, which is chase reality over the foundation of your dreams. Don't chase your dreams, chase reality. And that stuck with me because I'm all about that. Because we're living in the real world. We're not living in a fantasy land. The real world takes real work. Effort, grit, persistence, all of that. It takes that. And that's what we're doing out here. We're doing things step by step. We're doing things rationally. We're not just in some kind of a frenzy chasing our dreams and passions. It's not about being passion true to your heart and like chasing after that boy in the sunset, even though it's like gonna result in like some train crash or like later on, right? It's not that. We're thinking clearly. We're like planning for it. We're like doing steps to actively improve ourselves, treating it like a business, trying to like, do things because it's like, it's a career, right? It's not about like a whim, like I'm here following my passion, at least for me. I don't know, for some of you, maybe that sounds more romantic, but for me, that sounds more degrading about the actual work of the thing, which is not just, it's not actually fun a lot of the time. The actual work may not be fun. Financially, it's hard for actors. I think that's why maybe a lot of family members are keen for us to maybe do something else. Financially, it's no fun. You're broke a lot of the time. You're getting more broke progressively. I always recommend probably if you're about to move out to Hollywood or somewhere, to launch your career, you probably want to go there with a lot of savings because that's just gonna like go down. I'm like, only this year have I started to really become a sustaining actor and that I pay most of the things with money from acting, and even that becomes difficult at times. But I don't try to reach out for money from my parents, from other people who can support me, because I think there's a very real part of doing things on your own that again adds to the strength you have. It adds to the sweat and your own, I don't know how to say this, maybe your own soul that allows you to reach deeper and allows you to go higher. So that's why so many phenomenal actors had really hard childhoods. Al Pacino, many people, right? They were homeless at many times. They were very destitute. They're very financially just like not great. But after going through that hardship, do you have the experience or do you have that kind of thing within you that allows yourself to be so raw with your characters? And I think that's necessary. That's unnecessary. And it also, again, helps you to hone your vision and your sense of persistence in pursuing your task. Because then it's not about the creature comforts, the fluffy things, the material gains and pleasures. It's about, very much about the rawness of the actual thing. It becomes pure in my mind. So for me, I would say I don't think it's necessary to support the actor with a lot of financial coddling or help, because all I think is that just clips their wings and makes them weaker. What it does is that it makes them tied to being materially comfortable. And I think once, as a creative person, you're materially comfortable, you lose a lot of the sharpness you have to actually really poke into things, really carve out things and make them your own shape. And I think that's a lot what creatives do, is that they see things with their mind and they carve into it. And a lot of that needs some like rawness, and needs some grit, and needs some things that aren't so polished and nice and fluffy. When things are so comfortable or just like lounging and relaxing all the time, I think that's when you lose a lot of that need to fight, that sharpness. But not necessarily. Again, there's a lot of people who came out of very rich, comfortable backgrounds, and they were also great at what they do. So not necessarily, but I just mean that like financial support is not the main thing. I think the main thing is, what I'm saying is, actors are probably very emotionally needy people. They're very thirsty. They were very deficient for attention, for approval, for acclaim, for applause. That thing to them is probably the most priceless thing, you know? And I think that's a huge reason what a lot of people do it for. I meet a lot of actors, and it's a very, very common story, right? To have some kind of formative experience where somewhere down the road you got hooked onto the drug of applause, or to attention or validation. There was like that one experience where people came up to you and showered you with like approval and enthusiastically telling you like you were the best, like you were such a good, like I know I had that. You were so good in that role. That was the best monologue I've ever seen. You have so much natural raw talent and potential. I was told that, and people are told that, and that's what makes them think that they can do it. Or that's what gives them the thrill, the first initial rush. Not just the feeling of being on stage and feeling like infinite and feeling like you're flying, but just afterward also the people coming up to you and telling them you touched them, you moved them, you connected with them in some way. That is so powerful. And I think many, many actors, so many actors grew up being very emotionally deficient. They're very, very needy because some people, or like they just didn't get enough, or as much as they needed or wanted. A lot. I don't want to say all actors, but I think that is my theory, is that actors grew up feeling needy, feeling deficient in their source of emotional validation and approval. And they constantly thirst for it. And that's a large reason why they do it, is because it makes them feel good. That adrenaline, that rush. And again, I say it like I do it for myself. I do it for myself a lot. But of course, it's also for that connection with your audience, or that also is a factor. That approval, that feeling of satisfaction, achievement you get when you feel that you did a good job. Like first, if the director likes what you did, you know, if your person, your co-star is interacting with you, is connecting with you. These are all sources of validation, not just that you got like the Oscar, or like you whatever, the audience thought you were the best. It's not like just that. It's like these very small doses of feeling like you're getting emotionally connected and validated as a person. That, I think, is our drug. And that's what drives us. So I think why I'm saying this is that by knowing this about the actor's mind, the psyche, right? Knowing that they're faced with so much rejection because that's what they're used to. Just giving that bit of support and just cheering with them when they are cheering, encouraging them when they're let down, that could be so powerful. And I think some bit of useful advice, just like a slight nod, a nudge to keep going. For example, even doing these videos, I was kind of at least insecure, feeling like, is my persona coming off the wrong way? Like I kind of did this thing, but it feels kind of like, you know, I was like, do I come out as arrogant or obnoxious? And I was like telling someone this, and this guy told me, he was like, yo, you think too much about it. You have to keep doing it. And like, this is just the start. You'll find your voice. You have to just make a lot more. You have to keep going. You have to make a lot more. And by saying that, that was so nice. It was so warm. That felt really good to me. Because yeah, look at me now. Now I'm doing stuff. You know, that bit of prodding or like encouraging prodding will help you get out of the fear that we constantly shroud ourselves in. Because as actors, we're constantly shrouded in a sense of fear, stifling thing of like feeling like, oh, maybe people aren't gonna like it. Maybe it's not good enough. Maybe I'm not good enough. I think we live with those voices all the time. I think maybe that's why we do acting, is because it's like a cathartic way of us to let go of that fear. Because we're always constantly, even without acting, even without the nature of the business, I think we're always in that fear. And the way we cope with that fear, the way we process it, is by putting ourselves in situations with more fear. That sounds contradictory, but that's the way it is. We deal with fear with more fear. And the same when I felt like when I was sharing my first film, Metro, when I was about to share it, it was so frightening to me. That's why it took me so long to share it, because it was so personal, it was so raw, it was so weird that I always felt judged, and I felt like maybe people won't like it. And at first when I showed it to people, there were voices that did really judge it, really critique it, and that really hurt me. And as strong as I like to seem, or as strong as I believe I am, still those things hurt me a lot, because it felt like a personal attack. And it was. But it felt really bad. So I was plunged in like a lot of fear and insecurity about showing it. But with enough encouragement and support, and people just telling me, yeah, do it, why not? There was a lot of friends who told me like, yo, do it, you have to do it, just share it, I'll share it for you, you know, and telling me it's good. Just a lot of people telling me stuff. It's like, at the end, enough nurturing voices overcame the terrible shouting in my head telling me that I sucked. And then it made me feel okay to do it. And once I did it, then I forgot about it. Then I was like, oh, that doesn't feel like anything. I can do it again. Now I just like, yeah, like it's fine. But just the first step of putting yourself out there, whether an audition or in an online space or anywhere, just being encouraging, being nurturing is so kind. And a lot of people taking their first steps, like even if objectively it's not as good, or like it's kind of just an amateurish attempt, like sure it could be that, but why say that? Again, back to Van Gogh, like his first paintings were not great. They weren't. He is a genius. He's a talent of the ages, right? Such a talented person, but the talent needs to grow. The talent needs to be polished, like a piece of jade. It comes from a piece of rock, literally. It has the immense talent and potential within it, but it needs to be polished over time. It needs to be sculpted. And so when that rock is just coming to be, like coming to the world, hey, I'm here, I'm a rock. It doesn't need all the voices telling you, oh, you suck, you're just a rock. Because if a rock hears enough of that, they'll maybe just think they're only a rock and they don't ever see the jade within themselves. But with enough support saying you can keep carving yourself, you can keep sculpting yourself, eventually polishing itself time after time, that rock will turn into the jade that it always was, but didn't see. And so when people share their things, when people create, always nurture them. Sure, you can tell them in a direction like, oh, maybe it'd be better if you paid attention to this, or like maybe you can sculpt yourself in this way going forward, or like, you know, do this. But always encourage, or like be like, that's good. It's good that you at least did it. It's good that you're creating it. It's good that you're doing it. And it is good, because it's better than all the people who are so afraid to even make that step. So many people want to do it. I'm not kidding. Anybody wants to do it. Everybody wishes they could do it. But most of them are afraid to even try, because they know that the first attempts at trying will result in failure, and their ego won't let them do that. So fail. And I think so, yeah, back to what family and friends can do is, you know, it's just encouraging them to fail. encouraging them and being there when they fail and cheering for them when it's just such a small win. It seems like nothing, but to them it's like the world. And if there's like one person who can share in that, that's amazing. I just want to wrap this up by saying that I don't know what a healthy amount of criticism does do, and I think it depends on the person. I've been talking from personal experience, but my own tolerance for criticism and other things is probably different than what another person may have. So of course it depends on the person, but so it's not really, I'm not trying to give you like a step-by-step, like, oh, this is what you should do for your friend who's an actor or whatever, but rather just sharing my own personal perspective on what an actor may be going through that you may not potentially be able to really understand about their job. So, and maybe that helps in knowing like what to do, how to deal with them. But just in terms of criticism, again, I think probably it's also helpful, right? Saying like, for example, the people who first initially really criticized Metro or like attacked it for being such and such, you know, at the time you really hate them for doing it. You take personal offense, you're gonna mark them off your book and they get major points off for doing such a thing to you, you know? It really does. And you may actually not even want much to do with them in the future, but long term looking back, you appreciate them for telling you that, because it helped me and made me want to work harder on it. It made me want to make it better, right? And there has to be someone telling you that, because there is going to be criticism eventually from someone, right? Is it going to be at least well-intentioned criticism, like coming from a good place, like someone wanting to help you make it better? Or is it like a purely nasty, vile comment from like an online hater coming from just a very mean place? I think as long as the comment, the criticism is trying to be helpful, at least well-intentioned, and not mean, right? Not coming from a hurtful place to hurt you or to make you feel down, to criticize, to put you down. It's not the time is not to put you down, but to try to raise you up and try to make you better. If it's coming from that place, I think it's necessary. Even if it sucks at the time, I think it's necessary. And hopefully the actor, the creative person will be mature enough to kind of think back on that and be appreciative of that feedback, because only with those different perspectives and lenses can they kind of more objectively see what they're doing and think of how to improve and make it better. And that's a whole, I guess, process. I think if you're an artist and you don't want to improve and be better, then I think you'll be stagnant. So I think, at least for me, it's like that desire to at least challenge myself and evolve. And so I do appreciate criticism coming from at least not a mean place. And yeah, so I think it depends on the person again. So thank you for listening, and I really hope you could like, even if you don't agree or even support, if you could try to understand the actor's journey or understand any creative person's journey. It's very lonely. And it can be very hard. And oh yeah, one thing about the lonely thing is like sometimes that's necessary. So I'm very, again, grateful for everyone around me, because I think, yeah, all my close friends and my family know that for me, I like, there's a long periods of time where like we don't really interact at all, we don't see each other, we don't talk, because you need to have the time to be doing your own thing. You need time to kind of just focus and to recharge, and also just to be weird and explore things creatively by yourself, whether it's like taking long walks or doing some weird, poetry rap session or just trying out various things. Like, you need kind of that space to grow. And so I think for if you're the person, a creative, like to try to understand that, and not, because they can very much be in their own worlds a lot of the time. And I think that can be very frustrating to live with, especially because say, for example, if I get like a media audition, or like I'm doing something, like I'm filming my own projects, that's when I forget about everything. I can like literally not eat for days. When I was shooting Metro, I carried around a loaf of bread, and that's all I ate for like a whole week. like a loaf of bread. I was eating that while shooting Metro. Like in between takes, I was munching on that loaf of bread. Only sustenance. And we forget to take care of ourselves, and we sometimes forget to take care of other people around us, the living space, etc. Everything goes to total chaos and total havoc. Because that's kind of, it just kind of is necessary, because when you're so focused on doing one thing, so wanting to get one thing done, everything kind of just becomes, you know, just peripheral at that point. And yeah, I think when you're in that kind of mindset, if you can help, maybe that's great. If you can't, just to understand that, yeah, that's, you kind of just need to let them have that time and energy, because that's what their job is. That's what they're living for. So if you can't allow them to focus on that, then it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good for any like relationship or, you know, long-term trust or whatever. It's not going to be actually supporting them in the long run, because if they can't really achieve their potential, if they can't consistently like achieve their levels, their standards of what they want to do, then that's going to drain them or drag them and make them be very unhappy, I think. So I think for creatives, it's definitely important to want them to continually be able to create, because I think that's the battery that needs to be charged. That's the fuel pushing them forward. So thank you, and I hope to see you again. Please subscribe. Feel free to like, comment, share if you're so inclined. And I wish you the best in your journey going forward. And I believe in you, and you should believe in yourself. If you're an actor watching this and you're the family or friend, I appreciate you for wanting to know more. So thank you, and have a great day.